sense of things is that, this has been a strange South Carolina primary for the Republican Party. This primary has been going on here since 1980. It is, in a lot of ways, the most important of the early states. In every case except for one since 1980, the winner of the South Carolina Republican primary has been the Republican nominee. That tradition looks likely to be repeated this time around, as everyone assumes Donald Trump is going to win. The only question is by how much. But the way that Nikki Haley has campaigned here, the way that Trump has not campaigned here, the fact that Haley, declared defiantly she's going on after South Carolina, the way this race has played out over the course of the home stretch here in this week, raises a bunch of questions about what happens next and why is Nikki Haley staying in? What is her end game? Those are some of the questions that I've been thinking about over the course of the last week down here, and they're at the core of the piece that you're about to see right now.
South Carolina is full of historic sites. But when it comes to presidential politics, nothing says South Carolina like Charleston Harbor and the USS Yorktown. Over the past 30 years, the Palmetto State primary has become pivotal in both parties, and the Yorktown the venue for candidates seeking big campaign moments. From John Kerry in 2003,
I am a candidate for President of the United States of America,
to John McCain in his final speech of the 2008 GOP primary, cracking wise about Henry McMaster, then the state's attorney general and now its governor.
Do you know the difference between a lawyer and a catfish? One is a scum-sucking bottom dweller, and the other is a fish.
And from Newt Gingrich, on the eve of the vote here in 2012, poking at Mitt Romney.
I do not believe we can defeat Barack Obama with a Massachusetts moderate.
To Donald Trump in 2016, mocking a rival who'd soon become his most grotesque supplicant.
I mean, Lindsey Graham, he's got zero. He's at zero. Think of it.
And unfurling a proposal that would soon become one of his most infamous policies.
A total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Trump, Gingrich, and McCain all won the South Carolina primary, so it's no wonder that Nikki Haley would close out her campaign on Friday night at the Yorktown 2, after a week spent crisscrossing the state and attacking Trump more forcefully than she's ever done before.
He lost it for us in 2018. He lost it for us in 2020. He lost it for us in 2022. But look at what happened last week. Republicans lose a vote on Israel. Republicans lose a vote on Mayorkas and the border. The RNC chair loses her job, and his fingerprints were all over it. Everything he touches, we lose. How many more times do we have to lose before we say maybe he's the problem? He said that men and women who lost their lives in the military were suckers and losers. But it's because he's never been around a veteran. Donald Trump's never been near a uniform. The closest he's come to harm's way is a golf ball hitting him on the golf course, and that's the truth.
He sided with a tyrant who's made no bones about wanting to destroy America.
The idea that Trump would associate himself with Putin like that over our allies who stood with us after 9/11, in that one moment, he put all of our men and women in uniform that are serving there in danger.
Haley's focus on Trump and Russia was especially pointed regarding the murder of Alexei Navalny.
Trump needs to answer to that. Does he think Putin killed him? Does he think Putin was right to kill him? And does he think Navalny was a hero?
Trump had no intention of answering to any of that or doing much else this week in South Carolina, besides jetting in for a Fox News town hall and saying this about Navalny.
He was a very brave guy, and it's a horrible thing. But it's happening in our country, too. I got indicted 4 times. I have 8 or 9 trials, all because of the fact that I'm in politics.
This Judge Arthur Engoron ruled against you for almost $500 million plus interest that runs every day. It's a lot of dough.
It is a form of Navalny. It is a form of communism or fascism.
Yet Trump's unrelenting stream of self-aggrandizing, Putin-stroking gibberish has had no apparent effect on the state of the race. The former president is cruising, while the former governor spent the final 48 hours mired in controversy after answering a question from our own Ali Vitale about the Alabama Supreme Court ruling that under state law, frozen embryos are tantamount to children.
I mean, embryos to me are babies. You are talking about, to me, that's a life. And so I do see where that's coming from when they talk about that.
Haley has been backpedaling from those remarks ever since, but whatever their long-run impact, in the short term, two things are clear. Haley is headed for an absolute drubbing in her home state, and as she made clear this week in a speech in Greenville, her home state will not be her last stand.
South Carolina will vote on Saturday, but on Sunday, I'll still be running for president. I'm not going anywhere. I'll keep fighting until the American people close the door. That day is not today, and it won't be on Saturday, not by a long shot.
Haley noted in Greenville that she's used to people questioning her intentions, but the questions facing her going forward are even more about her endgame. Milling around Charleston Harbor with former Republican South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford, I asked him why he thinks Haley is staying in and where she imagines this all might lead.
Normally money kills you off in a campaign. She's got enough money to keep going. She's got, call it hanging around the hoop phenomenon, wherein Trump can beat Trump. The legal system might beat Trump. Trump's next hamburger might beat Trump, his health. I mean, and so if you hang around the hoop long enough, you never know if a stray shot's coming your way, and you can down it.
But Dick Harpootlian, the legendarily mischievous trial lawyer and former chair of the state Democratic Party, believes that Haley is playing an even longer and possibly shrewder game than that.
She's pure ambition, and she's good at it. I would agree with her that Trump is going to lose. So the party's going to be looking for somebody when this election's over who can bring people together, who has been out on the stump, can help them raise money. I think she's looking at that and saying, I can say in writ large, I told you so. I told you so.
I asked Harpootlian whether he thought in the end Haley could fit that bill.
When you look at the Republican Party, she may be that. Who else is out there? She is a new generation of Republican, and I think she can claim that mantle. If she gets through this and Trump loses, she's it.
So interesting. Personally, I think it's a brilliant move, John Hellman, to stay in there, to hang in there. Women are tough, and I think the moment, and I'm curious to your thoughts on this, that she didn't feel like she had to worry what she said about Donald Trump, took the gloves off, stopped kicking sideways, and started saying it like it is when she really found her voice. And she's a breakout star now, no matter what happens in South Carolina.
Yeah, I think, Mika, I think that's right. There are two different ways to look at Nikki Haley, and here there are people who, everyone recognizes she has a lot of political skill. Everybody also recognizes that she's very ambitious, and that there are the cynical people about her say, she kind of blows with the wind, and she's never been very consistent. She kind of takes whatever side of an issue that she thinks is going to get her the furthest. Other people sort of say she has evolved in a genuine way, to your kind of point, and that it took her some time to find her voice, and maybe too late, but that she's found it eventually, and she eventually dug in against Trump and was willing to take him on in the full-throated way she has, and that she's now kind of convincing in that role. I will say, as in New Hampshire, the state here, a lot of people wonder how different this race would have been if she had been going against Trump, guns blazing the way she is now, if she'd been doing that for 6 months, as opposed to just a couple months.
John, I'm curious. I've heard Nikki Haley skeptics for a very long time talking about, she's shallow, she's this, she's that, she's mechanical. I must say, Mika and I met her when she was a state representative in her first debate. We were both impressed with her, both on the stage and talking to her on the side. She seems really impressive. If Donald Trump were not in the race, she seems far more impressive than any of the opponents that she was running against. She is the last woman standing. I'm curious what your take is of somebody that's covered a lot of campaigns, been to countless primaries, and seen people talk about her political skills on the stage and then after the speech is over. Is this someone that the Republican Party could be looking to if Donald Trump is not sidelined by something this year, and if she ends up being the standard bearer 4 years from now?
Well, I think there are kind of three answers to that question, Joe. One is kind of pure political athlete. Is she her performance skills, her ability to project, her ability to connect. I think, she has been very good for a long time. She has gotten better. Everyone, even the most skeptical and cynical people about her here acknowledge that she has really grown in the course of this presidential campaign. In terms of just performance skills, she's way better than she was even 3 months ago, and certainly more better than she was a year ago. So she's at this point a pretty high level political athlete. There's the question about what's at her core. What is she really? She has, if you look at the last, her career since she became governor, she was a Tea Party kind of figure. She became more of a centrist figure after when she took down the Confederate flag. She then switched over and became kind of a Trumpian figure when she went to join him. She then became kind of a Trump critic. So she's been in a lot of different places ideologically. And I think, to be a really successful presidential candidate in the end, the combination of performance skills with a real mooring, knowing who you are, knowing what your core beliefs are, and projecting those consistently, that's necessary. And then there's the third part, which is what happens after if Donald Trump loses or ends up in jail or both and isn't reelected president of the United States at the end of this year? What happens to the Republican Party? That is like the big $20 million existential question. Is there a big fight for the soul of the party where some older version of republicanism rears its head up again and tries to reclaim the Republican Party? Or has Trump fundamentally corrupted the party and remade it in his image to the point where, the people like Nikki Haley, where she is now, and other more traditional Republicans they've lost the party for good, and Trump has left if not permanent, very long-lasting imprint on it. Those are the questions we don't know the answers to. But if there's going to be a big fight for the soul of the party next year and beyond, she'll be in that fight.
One of Alabama's senators appears to be confused about this issue, and I bet you can guess which one. On the sidelines of the right-wing CPAC conference yesterday, Republican Tommy Tuberville reversed his position several times in less than 2 minutes when our colleague Dasha Burns asked him about the ruling in Alabama.
Do you have a reaction to the Alabama Supreme Court ruling on the fact that embryos are children?
Yeah, I was all for it. You just got to look at everything going on in the country. It's just an attack on families, it's an attack on kids. Anything that we can do for the future of our young people, because they're our number one commodity. We need to have more kids. We need to have an opportunity to do that. And I thought this was the right thing to do. But
IVF is used to have more children, and right now IVF services are paused at some of the clinics in Alabama. Aren't you concerned that this could impact people who are trying to have kids?
Well, that's for another conversation. I think the big thing is right now you go back to the situation and try to work it out to where it's best for everybody. I mean, that's what the whole abortion issue is about. So
but this really isn't about abortion. It's about IVF and the concern that now families might not have access to it.
But it's about the same direction. But I agree. But people need to have access. People need to have. We need more kids. We need the people to have the opportunity to have kids. I'd have to look at the entire bill and how it's written. I have not seen it.
Supreme Court decision.
Well, I know that. But I'd have to look. I haven't looked at it. But this is a state issue.
Women aren't going to be able to have IVF treatments already in some places.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
What do you say to them?
Unfortunate. Unfortunate.
Alienate swing voters in the general election?
I don't know. It might some, but you don't hear a lot of talk about it. I mean, you don't. That's not a big conversation.
Well, it's a conversation now, and IVF is not a Democrat or Republican issue. Families across the board use it. What is your message to the Supreme Court if this does in fact stop families from being able to use IVF?
Well, we don't need that.
Wow, Joe. We need more kids. We need more kids.
God.
Amen to that. IVF gives the gift and the miracle of children to people who otherwise couldn't have it. Obviously, no command of the issue. He's talking about a bill. He hasn't read the bill. There's no bill. This is a Supreme Court ruling in the state of Alabama. Totally twisted in knots there, as many Republicans have been just in the last 2 days on this issue.
In his state, by the way. It's in his state. It's not like Dasha, who did a great job. It wasn't like Dasha was asking him about what happened in the Idaho legislature. Or in the Nevada legislature.
He clearly doesn't know what IVF is.
Or in the Oregon Supreme Court. Or in the, he has no idea. And, it'd be like, kind of like Forrest Gump if he got the ball and just ran in circles. He was just Michael Steele. He was just running in circles. He was getting dizzy. He was for that. He was for it. He was for IVF. He was for it. He was for, but he needed to read the bill. And she said, "Not a bill. It's your state Supreme Court. Your state Supreme Court, not a bill." And this is just another great example. The Republicans' message. Think about it. Donald Trump yesterday bragged about terminating abortion. He bragged about terminating the right, a 50-year right, in front of a Christian group. At the same time, he's leaking to the New York Times, for a 16-week ban.
Yeah.
At the same time, and then you have poor Tommy Tuberville. Poor Tommy.
How does he
running around in circles going, I'm for the ruling that bans IVF. I'm for that ruling. Yes, it's good. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that women can't use and families can't use IVF. It's unfortunate. I'm for it. I'm against it. I need to read the bill. Oh, it's a court case. Nobody's talking about it. It just happened.
It's the guy who stopped promotions in the military.
It just happened. Yeah, but this is such a nightmare for Republicans politically, and they know it.
Yeah, it's well. First off, he has no clue. He did not know what even the question was there. He had no understanding of it, no appreciation for it. They're all reactive. They think it's going to, lurch them in one direction, and they realize, oh, that's a dead end. I'll go in another direction on the same issue. Unpacking this a little bit, and I think Mika sort of framed this the right way coming into this conversation, that this is not like anything else, because actually goes to the heart of what pro-life Americans and certainly pro-life individuals in legislatures have argued for a long time. And in fact, Kellyanne Conway's own polling firm has shown nationally 86% of Americans support IVF because they understand and appreciate exactly what it is there to do for women and families, and for individuals who are trying to start a family. But here's the kicker. 83% of those self-same identified Christian right evangelicals support IVF. So Donald Trump is standing up in front of a room bragging about abortion, right? And what he did on abortion. Meanwhile, 83% of the people, 8 out of 10 of every individual in that room supports the IVF effort that allows women and individuals to create families. And so they don't even understand fundamentally the downstream impacts and effects of DOMS. State legislatures, courts, judges are acting with impunity against women. That's what this boils down to. They now have control of the issue. The proverbial, we caught the dog, right? The car has been caught by the dog. And now the dog don't know what the hell to do with the car. And the reality of it is the driver and the passengers in the car are like, what the hell are you doing? Right? And they don't recognize exactly what this issue means to so many Americans out there. And so there, you're going to see more scrambling. They want to get off of this so fast, Joe, to make your head swim. Yeah. Because this issue is like Dobbs. Like Dobbs, it is equally poisonous to their political ambitions because they fundamentally don't understand the impact it is having on women and families.
Yeah, I mean, Willie, it's actually numerically it's worse than Dobbs. 70% of Americans for years did not want Roe to be overturned. It's probably 60-40 now, 65-35. It's impacting every single election. This is an 80-20 issue. If you look at Kellyanne Conway's poll that was just cited, that Michael brought up, this is like an 80%, maybe an 85% issue. And you have pro-Trump activists out there now talking about contraception. They're not going to end by taking away one right of women. that has been constitutionally protected for 50 years. It goes from that to 10-year-old rape victims to IVF. And you watch, they're saying it, they're telling you, Justice Thomas said it, they're coming for contraception next. Now, they'll lie, but that's what their activists want to do. And these radical right-wing activists have infiltrated the Alabama Supreme Court. They will infiltrate another court, and you watch Griswold v. Connecticut and the right for women to have contraception. That's coming down the road if this continues, if Donald Trump supporters have their way.
Our next guest is really the face of the fight for women's health care. This woman is suing Texas over its strict anti-abortion laws. And she says now she's going to move her frozen embryos out of the state over fears Texas could soon stop providing in vitro fertilization treatments like we're seeing happening in Alabama. Amanda Zurawski almost died in August of 2022 after doctors refused to give her an abortion. She had been suffering complications while 18 weeks pregnant. Eventually, she showed signs of a life-threatening infection, and doctors finally performed the procedure. While Amanda survived, she says the infection and the lack of treatment that she got left lasting damage to her fallopian tubes. Now, she and her husband have turned to in vitro fertilization in an attempt to start a family. And Amanda joins us now. Amanda, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry this is happening to you and to so many women across the country. Can you first tell us a little bit more about the experience that led you then to turn to in vitro?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, first and foremost, and for shedding light on this topic. I think it's really important to so many people. So what happened to me as a result of the abortion bans in Texas directly impacted my fertility. And after I recovered, after I survived, my husband and I were advised to go straight to IVF in order to try to conceive and grow our family, which we're so desperate to have. And it took several rounds of IVF before we created a number of embryos. But now with this ruling in Alabama, I fear that because of the ability that Texas has to potentially pass something similar, I fear for the safety of my future and my embryos. And so we're getting them out of here.
So if you're able to get them out of here, I'm hoping you'll still be able to pursue your fight, really, to have a family. But what do you say to officials in Alabama, to the Supreme Court ruling, the state Supreme Court ruling in Alabama, and now you know this will take over and spread to other states, that embryos are children, and therefore, I mean, it makes no sense, because what will Alabama do with all of those embryos? How far do you think this will go? And what do you think this is doing to women in America overall?
I mean, that is my greatest fear, is that we don't know how far this is going to go. The slope here is so slippery, and it's so steep, and it's terrifying. If you are fortunate enough to have little to no experience with IVF, you don't know the layers of fear that are now compounding our ability to have a family, right? And, this happened in Alabama, and depending on what happens in November, this could be a nationwide situation, right? Trump has already said that he supports a nationwide abortion ban. And this is his fault, because he very proudly touts the fact that he overturned Roe v. Wade. And because of the Supreme Court justices that he appointed and the fall of Roe, now states have the ability to pass these draconian laws. And we have no idea how far it's going to go. And that's what's absolutely terrifying.
Amanda, you almost died because you couldn't get the termination that you needed during your pregnancy that was causing you immense pain and threatening your life. And now in the IVF journey, can you explain to those like, I don't know, Tommy Tuberville, who doesn't seem to know what IVF is, the stress, the waiting, the process, the pain of IVF, of that journey, of what it's like, you know, without these bans now that are, you know, hitting states like Alabama?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Any person who has been through IVF will tell you it is one of the most grueling, most difficult things a person can go through, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically. There's so much anxiety. There's so much unknown. There's so much fear. And now these laws that are now in effect in Alabama and could spread across the country, thanks to Trump, you know, it just adds another layer of fear. And you're already going through the most grueling thing imaginable. And now we have to worry about the safety of our embryos. We have to worry about whether we can be held liable if something goes wrong. And by the way, the process of IVF is extremely precise and extremely intricate, but there are lots of scenarios where things can go wrong. And that's just the nature of the process. And so if something goes wrong, am I now going to be held liable for wrongful death because science didn't fall in my favor? I mean, the fear is just massive.
IVF alone, you're dealing with the constant stress of the odds, the shots, the appointments, the changes in your body, the hope your body will perform, the hope the procedure will perform, the hope the numbers will land in your direction, the waiting, the constant waiting and hoping. And I'm wondering if you could answer this question. It's so hard. It's so grueling, as you say. Why do you do it?
Because we want a family. We want kids more than anything. And it's something that, you know, I feel very fortunate that IVF was an option for my husband and I, and that it is something that we can still pursue. But now I'm living in constant fear that that choice is going to be taken away from me.
Amanda Zurawski, thank you very much for coming on the show. We'll be thinking of you. Hope you can come back and update us. I hope you have success in your pursuit of having a family despite what is happening. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
The former informant charged with lying to the FBI about President Biden and his son Hunter with statements that were at the very heart of the House Republicans' ongoing impeachment inquiry is back in custody this morning. Alexander Smirnov was arrested again late yesterday in the lobby of his attorney's office while meeting with them to discuss legal strategy. In a court filing, Smirnov's attorneys say he was arrested for a second time on the same indictment and charges he was originally arraigned on and released from custody earlier this week. Prosecutors had asked a federal judge in California to detain him again after he initially was ordered released by a judge at a hearing in Las Vegas on Tuesday. A copy of the new arrest warrant shows it was issued by a judge in California yesterday. Prosecutors stated Smirnov is actively peddling new lies that could impact this year's U.S. elections after meeting with Russian intelligence officials just a few months ago. Special counsel David Weiss's office, which charged Smirnov, did not respond to a request for comment by NBC News. So, Joe, a lot of people had wondered why he was released in the first place, given what we know about him. A judge in California now gave the arrest warrant, so he is back in custody. But just to remind our viewers, this is the guy who is at the core, a star witness for the committee that is seeking to impeach President Biden, a star on Fox News. The entire argument hinged on the idea that Joe Biden himself had received $5 million in bribes. That turns out to be completely fabricated by this star witness who now has been totally discredited.
So when you're blinded by hatred of your political opponent, whether you're a news network or whether you're Congress, what happens? You let Russian disinformation get spread to your viewers on your news network. You let Russian disinformation get into I will call it, the sacred halls of the United States Congress, a place that's supposed to be the people's house, instead turned over to people who so hate and so despise anybody who's not Donald Trump or who doesn't bow down to Donald Trump, that they actually fling open the doors wide, not only for rioters on January the 6th, but also throw open the doors wide for Russian disinformation. Yeah. And they still don't apologize for it. They were used as vehicles to promote Russian disinformation. They won't apologize for that. And I'll tell you, Donald Trump still hasn't come out and said anything about Vladimir Putin assassinating his opposition leader.
It's grotesque. He's actually trying to parallel himself.
Yeah.
In Russia, the mother...
But parallel himself. They had a guy who was poisoned, killed slowly in a gulag in the Arctic.
Poisoned 3 times.
Poisoned 3 times, killed, murdered, which is what Donald Trump says he wants to do to his political opponents, wants them shot for treason. And also says that if that happens, he can't be held liable for it, that he's immune from that. But he's comparing himself to that guy. He's flying around on his private 757 plane, playing golf, cheating at golf. I'm sure that hasn't changed. And living in gold skyscrapers and at country clubs in Palm Beach, and spreading big lies every day. And he compares himself to a freedom fighter who willingly goes back into the fray, willingly goes back to fight tyranny in Russia, even though he knows that he could be killed. You know, it reminds me of his attacks on John McCain, where you had John McCain who couldn't lift his arms over his head because he stayed in Vietnam and as a prisoner of war when he could have been released because of who his father was. And he refused. He said, no, I'm going to stay here until my band of brothers can come home with me. And because of that, he spent the rest of his life not being able to raise his arms. And Donald Trump mocks him, ridicules him, mocks people that serve in the military, mocks people and asks the question, why in the world would they ever give their lives for their country? What's in it for them?
The behavior is sick and grotesque.
It is.
But
And
don't let it distract you
No.
from his connection to Russia, Trump's direct connection to Russia. At some point, you have to see what's happening. You have to look at this behavior, and instead of reacting and getting triggered, you've got to connect
But
the
what
dots.
they're doing is, Gene Robinson, what they're doing is not being offended by Donald Trump kowtowing to Putin. They have decided that in this personality cult, they too will kowtow to Vladimir Putin. And in this case, little Mike in the House is letting Ukrainians die every day, letting Putin advance closer and closer to taking over that sovereign nation that wants to be connected to the West. And they're doing it. So instead of criticizing Donald Trump for this bizarre pro-Putin, pro-Russia behavior, they have decided we're going to adopt it ourselves, and we're going to become the pro-Putin Republican Party.
Absolutely, that's what they are, and it's shocking. This is a pretty desperate moment in the war in Ukraine, where Ukrainians on the front lines literally are running out of ammunition. They're running out of weapons to fire back at the Russians. They're getting outgunned in a way that they weren't previously, and they've lost one really strategic town, and they will be fortunate if they can hold the line where they are now until more aid arrives. But what what they need is the big chunk of military aid, the weapons that only the United States has and can supply, and the Republican Party, because of Donald Trump, really, is refusing to budge on that. Mike Johnson, the Speaker, although Donald Trump is the real Speaker of the House now, but the nominal Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has always voted against Ukraine aid. He's got a thing about it, and he ought to be called out on that and asked to explain why he hasn't supported aid to Ukraine. But the rest of his caucus is absolutely going along with him. It is a stunning reversal of everything that the Republican Party used to stand for. Not that long ago, 10 years ago, it's just unthinkable that the Republican Party would be doing this. But here, again, we are.
Just moments ago, the Biden administration released the details of the new sanctions against Russia. Jonathan, what do we know?
So this has been teased now for several days by the president, and just moments ago, the sanctions package has been revealed by the White House and Treasury Department. It's over 500 sanctions, which is the largest set of these punishments on Russia since the initial days of its invasion, which, of course, the 2-year anniversary of that war is tomorrow. The bulk of these sanctions have been in the works for some time to commemorate the anniversary, but there were a few added in recent days, specifically targeting those who may have been involved with Alexei Navalny's death at that penal colony in Siberia. We know, of course, that President Biden met with Navalny's widow and daughter yesterday in San Francisco. These sanctions here, we're learning they're targeting in particular the Russian military, its ability to create its war machine. It will also target Russian companies and third country providers that have been helping Russia's military efforts, which will make it harder for the Kremlin to try to evade sanctions to find these goods. And there will also be some price cap sanctions the Treasury Department just moments ago announced that also should cut some funding to Putin's war machine. Now, to be clear, these sanctions to this point have not devastated Russia's economy. They've definitely weakened it, but he has been able to persevere and keep his military going. But aides tell me, Joe and Mika, this is just yet another step, and it's not going to stop, though the White House's main focus remains getting that supplemental funding to Ukraine. They think that will make a far bigger difference than any kind of sanction would.
All right. Yulia Navalny is stepping up to finish her husband's work, and without a moment to spare. This 47-year-old mother, suddenly a widow, is now the face of the fight against fascism, and she is already showing the resolve of an unbreakable leader.
Он убил половину меня, половину моего сердца и половину моей души. Но у меня осталась вторая половина, и она подсказывает мне, что я не имею права сдаваться.
Upon word of her husband's mysterious death, Yulia wanted to rush to her children, to cry with them, to console them. Instead, she stepped up to the podium at the Munich Security Conference, dug in, and demanded justice.
Я хочу, чтобы Путин, все его окружение, путинские друзья, его правительство знали, что они понесут за то, что они сделали с нашей страной.
For years, Alexei Navalny used his charismatic connection with people to organize in a country that silenced the opposition against a regime that sent many of his supporters to prison. He used every platform possible on social media. His charm and dark humor drew in supporters, all in the face of impossible circumstances. He was attacked not once, but twice in 2017 when pro-Kremlin associates stained his face green. Navalny made it part of his message, never losing his humor. The second time, doctors believe a toxic chemical agent was mixed in, costing him vision in his right eye. In 2020, he became violently ill during a domestic flight to Moscow, where Russian officials wanted to keep him.
Мы считаем, конечно, что это сделано для того, чтобы химическое вещество, которое находится в организме Алексея, исчезло.
Here, you see Yulia's strength on full display, as documented on HBO Max. Her fierce, protective instincts kicked in as she tore down Russian officials using the power of her voice to force the Russians to relent. Yulia coordinated the transport of her comatose husband to Germany in time to miraculously survive, recover, and be tested. And that was Yulia's next fight, her determination to find the truth.
German officials today said toxicology tests found unequivocal traces of a nerve agent called Novichok.
Navalny could have stayed out of Russia, but instead chose to go back and fight the system from within. And upon his return in 2021, he was arrested at the airport, spending the next 3 years in prison, separated from his family. This is Yulia and Alexei's last moment together ever. Yulia now steps into the global spotlight in a role she didn't want, but for which she received brutal, immersive training. She will likely bring with her a different approach while using the very skills that pushed her husband forward. While Alexei Navalny seemed to relish goading Putin,
Putin's supposed to be not so stupid to use this Novichok. If you want to kill someone, just shoot him. Jesus Christ.
Now Yulia stands fearlessly in the face of the Russian leader, without her witty, charismatic wingman, partner, inspiration, and love of her life. The worry for Yulia Navalny is now immediate and long-term. Where to live, how to begin again, how to stay hopeful.
Я буду продолжать дело Алексея Навального.
So I'll add another question to what's everything that's on her plate. Should she do this alone? And of course, the answer to that question is no. I urge all people who believe in democracy, especially powerful women in the Know Your Value community, to step up and help this woman. How can you help? You can help by supporting Aid for Ukraine. You can help by supporting the Anti-Corruption Foundation that her and her husband started. And obviously you can help by voting in the next presidential election. Connect the dots and see what's happening and see Russian aggression pervading our politics and see how she is standing in the face of this, and why shouldn't everybody else participate in protecting democracy and the lives of people who want freedom?
I think we have to change our perspective of work. A lot of times we talk about work, and you almost feel like the energy drain as you say the word. Work. We have to look at it as a place where we can build community. We have to look at it as a place where we can drive connection that is not only meaningful for us as individuals, but will actually make the company better too.
So that was Cisco's Executive Vice President and Chief People Policy and Purpose Officer, Francine Katsoudas, who spoke at last year's 3050 Summit on and around International Women's Day. During her 27 years at Cisco, she has overseen its inclusive growth programs and global social impact, landing Cisco at the top of Fortune's 100 best companies to work for 3 straight years in a row. And Fran joins us now to talk about our partnership with Know Your Value and Forbes on this extraordinary event, which is days away. Also with us, editor of Forbes Women, Maggie McGrath, and vice chair of the Forbes and Know Your Value 3050 Summit, Huma Abedin. She's also an MSNBC contributor. Good to have you all. Fran, we welcome you back as our partner for the 2024 3050 Summit as part of last year's iconic conversation with Hillary Clinton, Billie Jean King, Gloria Steinem, and Ukraine's First Lady, Olena Zelenska. That was incredible. There was so much during those 3 days. What do you think were the most impactful takeaways from last year? And what do you see as the most pressing challenges this year, which I think has a whole different tone?
It really does. When I look back on last year, I just have so much energy and gratitude for the summit. I think something that was so amazing is that we see women at all stages of their careers. Some people have 2 or 3 chapters, others have 6, 7, or 8, and all are sharing their story in a very authentic way. And I think what it shared with all of the women present is that you can have a career, you can have it your way with your strengths. Mika, I think something that you did last year, and I know you're going to do more of it this year, is the focus, too, on financial success and ambition. I will tell you, as someone who has always been ambitious with my career, I've known that women are looked at differently when they talk about ambition. And I think hearing so many women share their stories really allows people to understand there's a path. I think also as we bring women together, being able to talk about those conversations that are not at the table that need to be, I think is incredibly important. And I know we'll do a lot more of that this year, too.
You know, Fran, I wanted to ask you, one of the most important elements and aspects, and I think what makes this summit so unique, is this concept of mentoring.
Great.
And one of the women who was at the summit last year actually shared with us that she has never been able to form a trusted mentor relationship. And we recently heard from her, and she said that actually she found a mentor at the summit last year, and how grateful she is for that. So what advice do you give attendees coming this year who are looking to form relationships and maybe find a mentor?
Well, first of all, I'm so happy to hear that, and I'm not surprised either. There is a really beautiful environment of women supporting one another, and I think that's part of knowing your value. You know, it's interesting. When I look back on my career, I remember there was a time early on where I was in a meeting and I saw a leader handle a really tough situation. And afterwards, I went to her and I said, okay, tell me, how did you do that? And she was so kind and generous with her time to share what she did, how she learned to do that. And it was a learning early on that I think for everyone, when you see someone do something, when you see a skill or capability that you want, ask a question. I would say to all of the participants and more broadly, just don't hesitate. And I think for women who are asked to be mentors, everyone is so crazy busy, and I get that. But I think we as mentors also get as much as we give. And so I think it's a way to prioritize and really showcase how we take care of this ecosystem of women in the workplace and beyond.
That's great advice.
Now, Fran, I know you think a lot about the gender divide that exists within AI and cybersecurity, and it has never been more important to build inclusive workforces in these sectors, which is why this year at the summit we are going to have a panel on smashing the cyber ceiling, so to speak, with entrepreneurs Michelle Zatlyn and Noor Swede. What do you most hope our audience will learn and take away from this conversation?
So the first thing that I would say is when we see an area like security or AI take off, or we see these broader market transitions, everyone should know that creates opportunity. The other thing that I would say is that, as an example, today around the world, there are 3.4 million security roles that are not filled. About half of those are at the technician level, meaning that anyone can really, with some basic training, step into a new career. And so I would say it's never too late. I think we all need to invest in building our skills. The World Economic Forum now says that every 2 years, all of us have to do a little bit more investment in our skills. I know. And the other thing I would say is there's opportunities. As an example, Cisco offers something called Skills for All. You can look that up online. It's free, and it allows you to take security courses and then get certification. I think the most important thing for companies is that it behooves us to have diversity and inclusion in everything from AI to security. It will make the products so much stronger and really set us up from a privacy and safety perspective as well.
All right, Francine Katsoudas, thank you so much. We're not done with you yet. We're going to continue to put you to work and speak to you more in our next hour on the issue of AI. But thank you so much, and I so look forward to seeing you. And I'm so excited about our partnership. Maggie McGrath, Huma Abedin, thank you both as well. Also, for more details on the very upcoming 3050 Summit and how you can join, visit Forbes.com or KnowYourValue.com. Also, be sure to use the code Morning Joe for a special opportunity on tickets. It's going to be an amazing event this year.
I mean, you look, Shania. I mean, you just go down the list, and you know what
lineup is
what
amazing.
I love so much is you look at that lineup, and there's so many incredible people there that are coming this year, just like last year. But you know, one person on that list that I think. It's incredible seeing Susie Orman there.
Oh, yeah.
And
she's
Susie,
my inspiration.
because she's your inspiration. I remember 15, 16 years ago you talking about Susie and what Susie had done with her platform and how empowering what she did for women. And I'm going to say this, and every time I say things like this, you go like, what do you want? What are you doing? It's so exciting to see you Like I've seen you not only there, but I saw you in Hartford. I've seen you across America talking. And what's so exciting is, of course, when you get up there and you talk about women fighting for their value, fighting for their rights. Of course, it's exciting looking at you. It's even more moving looking at the women and seeing how much you move them and seeing them interact with you and interacting Maggie and whom and everybody else in this community. And it really makes a big difference in their lives.
Well, and I think it's especially important and poignant this year. We have an incredibly diverse lineup from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to Sheila Johnson, women who've really moved the meter, whether it's in art or in politics or on the global stage or at the local level or in business. And we're really in preserve and protect mode right now as women around the world, women here in America and around the world. We want to protect our rights. We want to preserve our gains. We want to push each other forward. And what you get at this event is this sort of cross-cultural, cross-generational support session, mentoring session, exchanging of information. Everybody leaves with either financial backing or feeling stronger in what they're doing. It is a remarkable event, and I'm really proud of the gains we've made. But this year, it's more important than ever, given what is happening here and around the world.